I always thought grief was the harshest winter a man could face, until I saw my grandson sitting outside in the snow. Thanksgiving morning. I left my quiet Ohio house the way I've done everything since my wife passed. Slow. Talking to rooms that don't answer anymore. I packed 2 bags. Ethan's favorite comic reprint and the leather wallet he admired last summer, plus Martha's cranberry relish recipe in her careful handwriting. Her blue quilt sat on the passenger seat. Money isn't always in banks. Sometimes it's stitched into old fabric and memories. Every mile I drove was paid for by Martha's thrift and love. The sky hung low and grey, wipers ticking like a metronome. I thought about Ethan's last call. Thin voice, clipped answers, like someone was listening. When I called my daughter Marissa this morning, no answer. I convinced myself the turkey needed attention, football, noise, anything but what my gut already knew. Their street looked like a holiday postcard, warm porches, glowing windows, laughter insulated behind double-paned glass. Then I killed the engine and saw him. Ethan sat on the porch like forgotten mail. Thin shirt, no coat, knees to chest, lips a painful shade of blue. When he looked up and saw me, relief hit his face so hard my ribs hurt. "Please don't knock," he whispered. "He'll hear." He didn't need to say Darren's name. Some men are storms you don't describe. You just brace for impact. I wrapped my coat around him, pulling the collar up around his ears. "How long?" "Since breakfast. Punishment. I disrespected him." "What does that mean?" I asked softly. He stared at the window. "It means don't make it worse." His legs shook when I helped him stand, the kind of tremor you feel in your bones. That's when I noticed a paper under his sneaker. I nudged it loose. Whitaker Family Counseling Associates, balance $280, therapy bill. The price of teaching respect. Left out here with the boy paying the cost. Inside, silhouettes moved. A platter, a wine glass, laughter. I rang the bell, loud enough to stop a song mid-verse. Nothing. Knocked again. Shadows froze behind the glass, then slipped away. Snow gathered in my hair. Ethan trembled harder. That was the moment something in me hardened. I didn't break the door. I recorded. Time, temperature, silence heavy enough to testify. Evidence speaks louder than fury. "Before we continue," I murmured, "subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. If you've ever stood on a porch like this, you know what comes next." I saved the video, and I stopped being polite. They always paint abusers as men who slam doors and throw fists. But the most dangerous ones smile first. I tucked my phone into my coat pocket, stood tall and knocked again, firm, steady, the kind of knock a man gives when he knows he pays his taxes and his conscience is clean. Inside, the TV muted. Forks paused. A chair scraped. Then the lock clicked, and the door opened a few inches. Darren Whitaker appeared wearing that polite, aggressive grin some men practice more than prayer. Clean sweater, wine-warm cheeks, confidence poured like gravy. The kind of man who thinks manners are morality. "Henry," he said smoothly, "we weren't expecting you." "I can tell," I answered. "Open the door." He didn't. His eyes flicked to Ethan, my coat wrapped around him, teeth chattering. Gaze glued to his shoes, like eye contact might explode something. "Ethan needed fresh air," Darren said lightly. "Attitude needed cooling off." "In freezing weather?" I asked. "On Thanksgiving? Disrespect has consequences." Ethan flinched, not from cold but shame, the kind that trains a boy to shrink before he speaks. I didn't wait for permission. I stepped inside. Men like him don't expect resistance from an old man who looks tired. Ethan followed close, like the cold was safer than staying behind. Warm light filled the living room, candles glowing, turkey steaming, guests frozen mid-bite trying not to stare. A picture-perfect holiday. If you blurred the blue lips of the child they left outside. Marissa appeared from the dining room, face pale. "Dad, why are you here?" "Why is your son freezing on the porch?" I asked. Her eyes flicked to Darren, then to Ethan. Shame flickered, then she swallowed it. "He needed time to think," she whispered. "He gets emotional." I looked at her, my daughter who once cried over injured butterflies, now defending the man who left her son to suffer like yard waste. A paper on the fridge caught my eye, family responsibility chart. Neat columns. Punishments listed like commandments. No meals, outdoor reflection, silent dinners, garage rest. Signed by Ethan. Abuse disguised as structure. You call that discipline? I said, it's control. Emotions are high, Darren replied. You should leave. Ethan's leaving with me. A fork dropped. Someone whispered. Marissa trembled. Darren's voice sharpened, quiet and cutting. If he walks out, don't expect to walk back in. I rested my hand on Ethan's shoulder. You don't owe fear a home. Let's go. We walked out. No shouting, no slamming. Just freedom stepping into snow at the truck. I tucked Martha's quilt around Ethan and filmed the front door. The porch. The boy who survived it. Evidence first. Emotions later. This isn't over, I whispered, and for the first time that night, Ethan's shoulders loosened, just enough to breathe. There is a particular silence that follows a rescue. Not relief, just a space where pain finally has permission to breathe. The drive to my house was headlights cutting through snow. Ethan clutching Martha's quilt like armor. Holiday lights glowed across tidy lawns, families laughing behind curtains. Warmth in every window, except ours, where warmth was a coat and a lifeline, not decor. You warm enough? I asked softly. He nodded, then whispered, I'm sorry you had to come. Kids like him apologize for needing oxygen. We look after each other in this family, I said. That's the rule that matters. He blinked fast. I pretended to look at the road. My home still smelled like coffee, cedar, and the echo of Martha's kindness. When I pushed the door open, Ethan hovered at the threshold, unsure if stepping in required permission. You're home, I told him. Walk in like it. He obeyed carefully, like the floor might scold him. Shoes still on. Survivors think about footprints more than comfort. I handed him a mug of chamomile and honey, Martha's blend. His hands shook around it, but color returned to his cheeks. We sat by the fire, snow tapping the windows like a gentle reminder the world could still be soft. He doesn't hit me, he murmured suddenly. Not really. Those two words, not really, are how drowning feels when you blame the water for being cold. How long? I asked since Mom married him. It started small, curfews, no phone. Then food rules, grades, apologies. If I upset the energy of the house, I had to stand at the wall and explain why I was wrong. Sometimes for an hour. Coercive control isn't loud. It's engineered. What happened this morning? I asked for more eggs. He told me to get a job. I said it's Thanksgiving. Then I sat outside to reset my attitude. If I knocked, it meant I wasn't ready. And you knocked? After 2 hours. He opened the door, stared at me, and shut it again. Not discipline, domination. He hesitated, then whispered, I tried to tell you once, months ago. I said I was eating in the garage. You thought I wanted space. My heart cracked. I'd mistaken suffering for independence. I'm sorry, I said. I should have heard you. I didn't hear me either. He pulled out a behavior chart, silent meals, garage nights, outdoor punishment, and a $280 therapist bill taped to it. He says the therapist agrees. He waits in the car, watches the clock. I photographed it quietly. You're safe now, I told him. Tomorrow we make it official. He sagged with exhaustion. I showed him the guest room, quilts, soft lamp, no locks. Good night, Grandpa, he whispered. Good night, son. He froze. Not fear, disbelief. When he closed his door, I opened a notebook, medical, legal, CPS. Quiet revenge follows rules. We weren't fighting a man. We were dismantling his kingdom. Outside, the snow stopped. Inside me, something powerful had just begun. Rescue is instinct. Justice is discipline. I woke before sunrise, the house still blue with winter quiet. For a brief moment, I forgot the world had shifted, that a boy slept down the hall who'd spent Thanksgiving shivering on a doorstep instead of cutting into turkey. Then I heard it, soft, uneven breathing. Ethan still fighting battles in his sleep. I brewed coffee the way Martha used to, slow, steady, and cracked eggs into a skillet. The sizzle felt like a promise. Normal life is built one safe morning at a time. Ethan appeared in the doorway, shoulders hunched like he needed permission to exist. You don't have to wait for an invitation to enter your own life, I said. He froze, then sat. Not relaxed, just trying. I set a plate in front of him. Eggs, toast, fruit. He stared at it like it might vanish. You can eat, I said softly. He lifted the fork with both hands, like he had to hold on tight or lose the right to use it. No boy should eat like that. After breakfast, we drove to urgent care. No drama, just truth, exposure to cold. Punishment outdoors, anxiety, tremors, avoidant eye contact. The doctor examined him. Mild frostnip, early hypothermia symptoms, elevated heart rate, stress responses, documented signed weather notes in the margin. Has this happened before? The doctor asked. Ethan looked at me. I nodded, giving him permission to speak his reality. Yes, he whispered. A lot. The doctor's expression tightened. You did the right thing bringing him. Let me know if you file a report. We will. Ethan looked at me like someone realizing the lifeguard actually dove into the water. Back home, I set paperwork on the dining table beside Martha's photo. Next step, a lawyer, I told him. You don't have to do all this, he murmured. You're not trouble, I said. You're the reason to stop it. His breath shook. Not fear, but release. We met attorney Ms. Rhodes at noon. Sharp eyes, quiet force. Ethan twisted the quilt fringe while she reviewed notes, photos, urgent care report. This is coercive control, she said. Psychological abuse, isolation tactics. We'll request temporary guardianship and file a safety plan. He won't let me go, Ethan whispered. Legally, she replied. He doesn't decide that. Heat in winter. Strength wearing calm. Document everything, she instructed. No confrontation. Quiet victories are hardest to undo. That night, by the fire, I gathered notes, photos, dates. Not rage, strategy, revenge wouldn't be fists. It would be signatures, affidavits, truth. Quiet men burn slow, and when we finally burn, we light the path out for someone else. Revenge stories always show the storm kicking doors open, but sometimes the storm arrives in a patrol car, engine quiet, lights off. 2 days after Thanksgiving, once medical notes were filed and every image printed. Ms. Rhodes called me early. Today, she said. Before he controls the narrative. She knew men like Darren didn't sit idle. They polished lies like silverware. I glanced down the hall. Ethan slept deeply. No flinching at floor creaks, no half-sob breaths. That peaceful sleep was evidence more powerful than bruises. I brewed coffee, packed a folder labeled documentation, and warmed the truck. When I told Ethan we were going back, not to argue, but with police, his shoulders stiffened. With officers? He whispered. Yes, he paused, then nodded. Okay. Fear didn't vanish. It simply knew it wasn't driving anymore. Sergeant Miller met us outside the station. Broad shoulders, steady voice, the kind of officer who didn't need volume to command a room. Family welfare check, he said. Neutralize. But we don't ignore what we see. Neutral is safe when truth is your witness. We followed his cruiser through quiet Ohio streets dusted with frost. Holiday garlands, wreaths, warm windows, postcard perfect. You'd never guess one house hid a war. As we pulled into Marissa's driveway, Ethan clutched the quilt, thumb rubbing the stitching like a rosary. You're not alone, I murmured. He swallowed. I'm starting to believe that. Darren opened the door fast, too fast. He'd been watching. His smile was thinner, jaw tight. He saw the officer, me, Ethan standing straighter than before. What's this? He asked. A welfare check, Sergeant Miller replied. Standard. Darren forced a laugh. Holiday emotions. Teen attitude. Nothing serious. Mind if we come in? The officer asked. A flicker of panic crossed Darren's eyes, control slipping like sand. Of course. Inside, I saw it differently now. Rules taped in corners, earned privileges whiteboard, chore punishment clipboard. A house dressed like discipline, functioning like captivity. Where's Marissa? I asked. In the kitchen, Darren said quickly. Emotional day. Women get dramatic. Ownership disguised as concern. Marissa emerged, eyes swollen. She didn't meet my gaze. Not hatred. Just exhaustion from holding up someone else's reality. Dad, she whispered. Sergeant Miller walked the house quietly. No theatrics. Just collecting truth. A freezer with a lock. A camera pointed at the hallway. A garage keypad inside the door, like someone planned for escapes. Then the basement. He opened the door. Cold air rolled out, mattress, thin blanket. No vent, not a dungeon, almost acceptable. That's how controlled cruelty survives. Storage, Darren said quickly. The officer looked at Ethan. You sleep here. Ethan didn't speak. He just flinched. Truth involuntary and damning, a voice from outside. Mrs. Bennett, the neighbor. I've seen him on the porch at night. Cold, more than once. Darren's expression cracked. Marissa closed her eyes. Abusers don't fear police. They fear witnesses. In the foyer, Sergeant Miller spoke. Ethan remains with his grandfather. Investigation continues. Darren's mask slipped. This is discipline. I'm his father. No, I said. You're his warden. Ethan stepped forward, not behind me and beside me. I'm not coming back. Silence. Not victory. Freedom exhaling. Darren didn't rage. Didn't lunge. He just stood there, realizing control doesn't scream when it dies. It goes quiet. We left. No applause. Just air that finally felt like oxygen. For the first time, Ethan whispered, I'm ready. Christmas lights glowed behind us. Blissfully unaware, a storm had passed without breaking a bulb. Some battles end with shouting. The most dangerous ones end with paperwork and truth. Monday morning, the world looked normal. Snow shoveled, school buses humming, neighbors scraping windshields. But inside Ethan's chest, I could hear the tremor of a life shifting on its foundation. He sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of cocoa, staring at steam like it might spell out answers. The quilt lay over his lap like armor. I buttered toast the way Martha used to, as if good bread could restore faith. CPS interview today, I reminded gently. He nodded, not afraid, not eager, just ready, in that bone-tired way survivors get when running stops and standing begins. The caseworker arrived at noon. Ms. Alvarez. Calm smile, notebook, eyes that saw more than they said. She spoke with the softness of someone who's heard too many stories and still treats each one like the first. Ethan, she said, voice steady, you can talk to me alone if you'd like. He looked at me. I didn't speak. Agency must belong to the person who lost it. I want him here, Ethan said. So we sat together, no dramatic sobs, no Hollywood confessions, just quiet truth in fragments. Like broken glass pieces, placed carefully on a table so no one gets cut. He told her about silent dinners, sleeping in the garage, timed apologies, locked freezer, being watched when he ate, the porch, the cold, the long hours where he wasn't sure if he was being punished or erased. Ms. Alvarez didn't flinch. She wrote, slowly, deliberately. Then she asked, did your mother try to help you? Ethan swallowed. That question hurt more than any other. She tried once, he whispered. He talked to her for a long time after. Not yelled, talked, like carving wood quietly in the dark. And after that, the caseworker asked, she said I needed to learn respect. She said I was lucky to have structure. His voice cracked. Not at the abuse, but the betrayal. Mothers are supposed to be shields, not mirrors for someone else's cruelty. I put a hand on his shoulder, not to steady him, but to remind him he wasn't speaking into a void. When she finished notes, Ms. Alvarez looked at me. You documented well, she said. I nodded. Photos, medical report, attorney notes, even the behavior chart I photographed, like a crime scene artifact. But we weren't done. I slid my phone across the table. There's something else. I pressed play. Darren's voicemail, left late the night after the welfare check. Henry, I know what you're doing. You think you're helping him, but you're making this worse. He needs discipline, not coddling. I expect him back. If you interfere with my household again, I'll make sure legal authorities know you're mentally unstable since Martha died. I don't want to embarrass you, but I will if I have to. Polite tone. Calm cadence. Vicious intent. Ms. Alvarez didn't look surprised. She just added a star next to the entry. Professionals know the sound of a smiling threat. We'll be moving forward, she said. Temporary guardianship petition will likely be approved. Stay reachable. When she left, Ethan sagged, not defeated but emptied, like someone setting down a weight they'd carried so long they forgot what hands were for. You did it, I told him. He shook his head. I didn't fight. I just talked. Talking is fighting, I said. Silence is what they count on. He stared at me a long time. Then do you think Mom will ever see it? I think she already does, I answered. She just hasn't admitted it out loud yet. Some truths don't burst. They seep until there's nowhere left to hide. That evening we didn't talk about Darren or court or fear. We played cards, burnt wood in the fireplace, ate stew and cornbread. Normalcy isn't boring. It's holy when you've earned it. But before bed, Ethan paused at the hallway. Grandpa? Yes? When he finds out I spoke to CPS. He won't hurt you, I said, voice iron. I know, he hesitated. It's not that I'm scared of him anymore. I just don't know what he'll do when he realizes he doesn't scare me. That's when I knew the power had shifted. Fear hadn't disappeared. It had simply changed homes, not in Ethan anymore. Now it lived in the man who'd lost his control. Courtrooms don't smell like justice. They smell like floor polish, old paper, and fear. We sat in the hallway outside Family Court D12, Ethan beside me, hands tucked into Martha's quilt folded across his lap like a shield. Not hiding, anchoring. Healing isn't loud. It's just breathing without asking permission first. Marissa arrived late, scarf wrapped too tight, eyes puffy like she'd cried in the car, and wiped it all away before stepping inside. She sat across from us, not beside Darren, but not beside us either. A middle ground made of guilt and habit. When Darren walked in, polished suit, calm face, confidence swaying in his stride like a man entering a room he still believed he owned. Everything in me went cold. Not hate, not rage, focus. Men like him don't crumble in screams. They crack in silence, when consequences finally have names. Ms. Rhodes, our attorney, joined us, files organized, voice steady, expression carved from stone and sympathy. He'll try charm and composure first, she murmured. Then he'll pivot to victimhood. Stay calm. I nodded. Ethan didn't. He just stared at the door like he was afraid if he blinked, the world might flip back to what it was before he spoke. Judge Howard took the bench. Silver hair, glasses, eyes like she'd lived this case 100 times and still found each one worth her attention. She didn't say, "Court is now in session," with theatrics. She simply began, voice clean, purposeful. Temporary guardianship review for minor Ethan Caldwell. Allegations of coercive control, unsafe discipline, and emotional neglect. Darren's attorney stood, slick voice, smooth manner. Your Honor, my client is a devoted stepfather. Structure isn't abuse. It's guidance. The boy was simply rebellious and influenced by his emotionally vulnerable grandfather, who is grieving and overreacting. He motioned at me like I was a cracked vase, someone kept out of sentiment. I didn't flinch. I've buried a wife. I don't break easy. Evidence time, Ms. Rhodes laid out the timeline like a quiet execution. Photos of Ethan freezing on the porch. Urgent care notes, the behavior charts, the locked freezer photo, the garage reflection space, notes from CPS, and finally, the voicemail, each piece placed slowly, giving the truth room to breathe and sting. When the voicemail played in court, Darren's jaw flexed. A tiny twitch, but enough. His voice, calm and poisonous, echoed through the speakers. The courtroom didn't gasp. They didn't need to. They heard him. Judge Howard's pen paused only once, when she wrote a note after the words, mentally unstable since Martha died. A man who uses grief as ammunition never expects it to blow. Back, then Ethan spoke, not loud, not dramatic, just steady heartbreak measured in quiet sentences. I didn't think I deserved help, he said. I thought I was the problem. Long pause. I don't want to go back. He didn't cry. He didn't tremble. He just told the truth, like someone who finally believes it matters. Marissa's turn. She tried to be calm, failed. Tears broke in slow, painful waves. I was scared, she whispered. I convinced myself it was discipline, because the alternative was admitting I failed my son. She sobbed into her hands. Not theatrics, not absolution. Just a mother facing the truth she let in the house. Darren sat stiff. Polite face cracking around the edges like old paint. Men who build empires out of control always look shocked when freedom walks out the door. Judge Howard folded her hands. Temporary guardianship to the grandfather. Supervised visitation only. Mandatory counseling for both parents. Financial monitoring. Any retaliation will result in emergency protective orders. Quiet, final, sharp as a blade, no applause. No victory theme. Just a boy exhaling like his lungs learned oxygen today. As we stood to leave, Darren finally spoke. Voice small, almost bewildered. He turned you against me. Ethan looked at him, really looked at him, and said the sentence that ended everything. No, you did. Truth doesn't roar. It just refuses to bow. We walked out together, not triumphant, just free enough to start healing. Victory isn't fireworks. It's breakfast without bracing for footsteps. It's laughing without checking who hears. It's a boy walking into a room instead of waiting to be summoned. 4 months passed. Not quick, not smooth. Healing never is. Winter thawed into early spring, and the world outside my window traded icicles for robins pecking at thawed earth. Inside, warmth wasn't just from the furnace. It was in the way Ethan yawned openly, the way his shoulders dropped when he sat, the way silence no longer frightened him. Trauma trains you to listen for danger. Healing teaches you that quiet can simply be quiet. One soft April morning, sunlight spilled across my kitchen table like honey. Ethan sat there, poring over an envelope from Ohio State. The real kind, the thick kind you can feel hope in before you open it. He didn't shake when he unfolded the letter. He didn't look for permission before reading. He just opened it, accepted scholarship engineering program. His breath hitched. Not crying, stunned joy, the emotion kids relearn slowly. Grandpa, he whispered, voice cracking like ice thawing on a lake. They want me. I always did, I said. They just caught up. He laughed. That real teenager laugh I hadn't heard since he was 12, before discipline became a cage. Later, Marissa arrived. She didn't barge in or hover. She knocked. Slow, respectful, learning boundaries like her son was learning freedom. Can I come in? Simple words, but they meant she knew the damage now, and she intended to rebuild instead of pretend. She and Ethan hugged. Not a movie embrace. Not instant forgiveness, but a bridge built brick by brick. She had been in counseling every week. She had moved into a small apartment nearby. She was earning trust, not demanding it. Mothers don't always break free fast. Sometimes they come back in pieces and learn to be whole again. That afternoon, while Ethan met his friend Jake for guitar practice, Marissa helped me in the garden. We turned soil, planted tomato seeds, and trimmed Martha's rose bushes. Dirt under our nails, sun on our backs, grief and guilt mixed into earth where something new could grow. Dad, she said finally, voice fragile but firm. I'm sorry, I didn't tell her it was okay. I didn't rush to erase her guilt. I let her sit with it, because owning harm is part of healing too. I believe you're trying, I said. That matters. She wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist. I'm going to earn him back. Not earn, I corrected. Support. He'll come when it feels safe, she nodded. That was enough. Evening settled like a soft quilt. Ethan returned home with rosy cheeks and guitar strings humming in his fingers. He sat by the fireplace, the same spot where he first thawed from a winter no weather report measured. Grandpa, he said, voice steady. Yes? I want to study social work later, or counseling. Help kids like me. My throat tightened. Not from sadness, from pride so strong it felt like a second heartbeat. You'll be good at it, I said. You found your voice. Now you'll help others find theirs, he smiled, easy, unguarded. A boy becoming a man without fear, shadowing him. Before bed, as twilight cut the sky in half, Ethan draped Martha's quilt over my shoulders instead of his own. She'd want you warm too, he murmured. I swallowed hard. There are victories courts can't grant and quilts can't explain. Moments where love circles back around and tucks itself in properly this time. Thank you, son, I whispered. He didn't look surprised at the word now. He stood taller instead. People think revenge is about punishing the villain. But the real victory is when the person they hurt gets to live, not just survive. Ethan closes doors without fear, laughs without permission, plans a future. And me? I sit by the window every morning, coffee in hand, watching a world thaw, outside and inside, and I whisper to the woman who taught me family meant protection. We did it, Martha. We kept him warm. If stories like this touch you, don't forget to subscribe and tell me where you're listening from. And remember, if you see someone being left out in the cold, don't look away. Warmth is a choice, and sometimes it's the bravest one.